So with that being said, we will go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Again, welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining. Oh, I'm sorry, Anthony, you can go to the next slide here. All right. So welcome everyone to today's webinar, Effective Leadership Series Part 4, Building an Effective Team. My name is William Moore with OJJDP's National Training and Technical Assistance Center. And as your technical host, I would like to discuss a few features of the Adobe Connect, not Adobe, Cisco WebEx platform before we begin. Please note that today's webinar is indeed brought to you by our colleagues with the Innocent Justice Foundation, supporting heroes in mental health foundational training. Okay. There we go. There we go. Thanks, Anthony. All right, so please note that today's webinar is indeed being recorded and will be placed and published on our NTTAC YouTube page. If you'd like to view past or archived videos from our colleagues here at Shift or even other organizations, you can access it through the YouTube page. If you'd like to receive any supporting materials, you can contact the OJJDP TTA Help Desk at OJJDPTTA@usdoj.gov. All right. Please note that if you're having any trouble uploading any of the event materials, please contact us at the OJJDP TTA Help Desk, and we can make sure that you all receive those items that we've put in the file transfer box here. Please make sure that you are dialing out through the WebEx phone line to have the best or most optimal audio. You can connect through a phone or through a headset icon will appear on your name in the participants panel there to indicate that you are indeed connected. If you're experiencing any technical issues during today's webinar, please send a private message directly to me. Please note that during today's webinar, we will cover your questions as they come in. Please be sure to send your questions through the chat panel or through the Q&A panel that we have here, and we will record your questions and try to get to as many questions as we can. Please note that you may submit your questions following the instructions here on this slide. Now, let's get some practice in and help us count. For those who are joining in a group, let's get a count going. If you could, please go to the chat window and indicate the number of additional people in the room with you today. If you're viewing alone, there's no need to type anything at this time. However, if you are viewing with, say, 1 or 2 additional people, you would go to the chat and type in the total number of additional people in the room with you today. So again, if you're typing alone, there's no need to type, or if you're viewing alone, there's no need to type anything at this time. However, if you're viewing with additional people, please type in the total number of additional people that are joining you today. Please note that individuals who are indeed signed in to the WebEx platform will receive a certificate of attendance. Note that this is for individuals who are signed in. So for those of you who just indicated that you're joining in as a group, I encourage you to please download the group validation form, if you haven't already, in the files transfer pod there, and send it over to OJJDPTTA@usdoj.gov, and we can get a certificate for those additional individuals who are joining you today. Here is a quick agenda for today's webinar. All right. And this being said, I would now turn it over to our moderator, Gabriella, for today's webinar. Gabby, take it away.
Hi, everyone, and welcome here with me. My name is Gabriela McGowan, and I am the program manager of the SHIFT program here at the Innocent Justice Foundation. And this is our fourth and last part of this series on effective leadership, how to build an effective team. As Will mentioned beforehand, we do have parts 1 and 2 available to watch and listen to on the YouTube channel that NTTAC provided, as well as on our own shiftwellness.org website. And I believe parts 3 and 4 will be up shortly as well, so you can go ahead and watch those if you would like to. We here at the Innocent Justice Foundation were founded in 2009, and it was at the insistence of many of the Internet Crimes Against Children task force commanders across the country. They noticed that lots of their people were experiencing burnout and vicarious trauma, and just a host of issues that were with their mental health. And so they wanted a program that was available to them that helped mitigate that. So here we are, we created the program, and in normal times we travel across the country and we provide this training to people in person at no cost to their teams and their affiliates. Now, fortunately, we are in COVID times, so we try to do as best as we can virtually. We go to online conferences, we do these webinars here with NTTAC, and we also do offer Zoom group meetings for teams. So if you're interested in any of that, or if you have a need at all, feel free to contact us. Our information will be on your screen, as my email is right now. You can download this PowerPoint, and then you can email us with any questions or concerns. So feel free to chat with me. I will be here. You will see my face, and I'll try to respond to as many questions as you have in the chat box, as well as at the end of the presentation. I do have some questions from you guys from beforehand, so thank you for submitting those, and we will get to as many as possible when we are done presenting. And without further ado, I want to hand this over to our absolutely amazing trainers. We have Carol Bush. He is the embedded mental health provider for Anthony Mays' team, and Anthony Mays is the ICAC commander in New Mexico. So here we go. Carol, take it away.
Hi, my name is Carol Bruska, and unlike Gabby said, that I'm the embedded MHP for Anthony's team here in New Mexico. I have been working with his team for about 6 or 7 years. I don't really recall because the time flies so much. I enjoy working with the team because I get to give tools and tips on how to keep everyone well and how to keep them resilient. So I'm really looking forward to being some of those with all of you. I also work as an intensive street outreach as the clinical director there, working with people who have experiencing a mental illness and experiencing homelessness, and who are high utilizers of first responder services. So I have a nice balance of working with really intense work and then working with people who just need some support around staying healthy. So I'm excited to be here today and looking forward to present. Anthony?
Thank you, Carol. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Mays. I am the Special Agent in Charge and the Commander of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and the Human Trafficking Task Force for the Office of New Mexico Attorney General. I have now been the commander for about going close to 12 years. I actually have been in law enforcement for over 32 years. I retired from the Albuquerque Police Department back in 2008. And with the Albuquerque Police Department, I got a chance to work a variety of assignments. My last assignment was violent crimes, homicides, sex crimes. And so I'm really excited to share with you what we'll be talking about today. This is the fourth part of our series. However, if you missed the first three, you'll be able to jump right in and learn quite a bit still through today's presentations. So what we will be sharing with you today is what we've been able to implement with our team, Carol and I, for our ICAC task force in New Mexico. And we've been very successful with it, and we have a very healthy team. We have 89 affiliates throughout the state, federal, state, tribal, military, and of course some nonprofits as well, service providers. And everyone is doing great. And again, we're very excited to share this with you and how you can implement this with your teams. So let's get started. All right. So SHIFT, and as we mentioned before, this is the Effective Leadership Series Part 4. and the other parts will be available to you on our website, the SHIFT website. And if you'd like to go back and listen to those, I mean, each one of them definitely has some valuable information for you, so please do so. The SHIFT program was actually is funded by OJJDP through the Department of Justice, and basically the same folks that fund our ICAC grants. In fact, I was one of the very first task forces to actually list a MHP and a wellness program in my grant. Gosh, like Carol, I can't remember. It's been so many years now. But the great thing is I got a lot of support from DOJ and OJJDP because they recognize that wellness is important for our teams, both law enforcement and support staff and service providers. So it was a really easy sell, and since then we've been able to make this work. And again, this is being brought to you through funding through these folks.
So the leadership series, like Gabby said, this is number 4 of our leadership series. And if you are interested in seeing the others, you can contact Gabby and she can give you the direct information on how to see the first 3. So the webinar series was designed to address wellness strategies for those in leadership. So we understand that in order to be a good leader, you have to be well yourself. And then in order to be a healthy leader, you need to have the strategies to do that. So a strong leader recognizes that being in tune with themselves and with the mental wellness compassion is an important part of the wellness and an effective tool for enhancing performance. So self-compassion, and that's something that we talked about a great deal last time, entails being intentional about caring for one's well-being and focusing on growth. So once a well-established wellness plan is in place, the next step is working with a team so they can be aware of their own needs. So in this presentation, we're going to focus on how to actually create that team and what the important skills are or the important things that you need to look for in order to create that team. So I think we can get started. So the objectives today will be to explore how to become an effective ICAC leader. And the reason that we have been, initially we talked about what leadership was, and then how to recognize that and how to become a leader. We want to make sure that you have every piece in place so that there's no missing links in order to get that team together. So in this last webinar, we're talking about what are the skills that you need to become effective as an ICAC leader. And we're going to discuss the importance of wellness for success. So that means your own wellness. And then learn about self-compassion. So that's talking about how can you be compassionate towards yourself. And then understand the steps needed to create an effective ICAC team.
Awesome. Okay, well, as Gabby mentioned, we usually do this in person, and actually we love doing it in person because we get a chance to meet many of you and get a chance to engage a little bit more. But this is a good format, and I'm glad we're still able to bring this to you. So again, these SHIFT classes were created to support the ICAC teams, as Gabby and Carol mentioned. Because of the exposure, being exposed to child sexual abuse material over a long term, it can cause definitely negative effects to professionals. And again, this can affect law enforcement, our support staff, even our victim advocates who work directly with those victims. Something to mention though, there's no stigma behind what we're going to be discussing. And the reason we bring this up is that being a law enforcement officer for over 32 years, I remember years ago, it wasn't something we wouldn't ask for help. It was more doing choir practice. And if anybody's familiar with the term choir practice, is that after work, the way you dealt with things is you went and had drinks with your friends, and that's how you dealt with it from work. And you end up talking about the job when you're having drinks, and that was supposed to help. And what we're finding now that that isn't so helpful. And having the right tools in place, having the right people to talk to, and understanding how to deal with this better instead of having that choir practice definitely makes a difference. So that being said, through today's presentation, just keep that in mind that if something comes up, something you want to discuss, please put it in the chat box. If we don't get a chance to get to it today, and this is, unfortunately, this isn't going to be a 6-hour presentation. If we can't get to it today, Carol and I will definitely get back with you, because with our experience and everything we've been through, we definitely want to be there to support you. So again, just there's no stigma. One of the things I do want to say is I'm really, really excited. What I've been seeing all over the country is that law enforcement is finally reaching out, and it's recognized that it's important for us to have mental wellness. And I think it's important we keep this. So again, I'm excited that you're all here, and let's get started. All right, so where do we begin? Really, let's talk a little bit about that. Understanding what makes an ICAC team, what makes a great ICAC team. So understanding that really is, I mean, it's more than just having the right people in place. I mean, having the right investigators who can do the UC work and do peer-to-peer, and having the forensic examiners. It's more than that. It's having a very cohesive team, a team that can work together, and a team that can support each other. And having the right team, having that team having clear objectives so they understand what's expected of each one of them and how to support each other. One of the things I always recommend, I've done every role. I mean, quite honestly, I started the ICAC task force back in 2008. Again, when I retired from the Albuquerque Police Department, came over to the Attorney General's office and started developing, we had just got the grant, and I started developing the ICAC task force. But when I started developing it, it was just another agent and myself. And so I took on the role as an analyst. So I was actually looking at the cyber tips. I was getting the subpoenas, getting the warrants. I was working the cases. And then I was out in the field meeting with people. I was taking peer-to-peer classes. I went through the ICAC IT training. I went through a lot of different, all the different trainings that we offer for ICAC team members. And I assume that everyone understands that ICAC stands for Internet Crimes Against Children, and if you're new to the team. But just understanding what a team is made up of, I thought that was important moving forward to become the leader of the team, doing each person's job. So now when I spell out those objectives, I've done that job. I've done the downloads, the peer-to-peer downloads. I've done the UC work. I've downloaded tips, and I've sat in front of a grand jury and described what we were seeing. So that's important. That's an important part of being a strong leader, is understanding what your folks do. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about this moving forward, but to think about that is if you're a new leader, and I came from a large police department, and we get moved around and you get thrown in a new position, and suddenly you go from working SWAT and now you're in charge of the ICAC team and you've never worked these cases. Think about how you're going to get yourself up to speed, and we'll talk more about that during this presentation, and how it'll make you a stronger leader to understand what everyone's doing. So again, establishing clear roles that's important, and so everyone understands what their role is. Now I have two support staff, administrative assistants, and they understand their role, but part of their job description, what I explain to them is that they serve as a backup to our analysts, because of course the tips are the high volume of tips that she will see in any one day is sometimes impossible for her to keep up with. So the backup plan is our support staff understand that they're supposed to help the analyst with that. And I did that through clear communication. Again, as I mentioned, I put it in a job description, which is important that they understand what their job is. But then I sit with them and work with them, and they understand what they're going to be experiencing. Now, the important part of that is that having that clear communication is from the day that you hire them, from the day, well, even in the interview, is they understand what they're going to be exposed to. And again, these images are difficult, right? And then working sometimes with victims, they're difficult. So understanding what they're going to be exposed to and having that clear picture of everything. Definitely encouraging cooperation, and again, with that example, letting my support staff know that part of working together as a team is important to support each other. Now, in fact, recently we were falling behind on our tips, and what I did is I reached out to the rest of the team, and I said, I need everyone to take on 25 cyber tips that need to just be closed because our analysts can't get to them, and support each other. That is part of teamwork. And then, of course, ensuring the opportunities for personal development. And as a team leader, thinking about what are some of the things you can do to develop them. Now, some of the things that I do now during this pandemic, we're working remotely. So my team is encouraged to take trainings each week to continue to develop their skills so they can be the best that they can be in ICAC and human trafficking. In addition to that, though, I recommend that they take other courses as well, even things dealing with money laundering, because it could apply to human trafficking. But those are all very important, but then I also talk about wellness quite a bit. I mean, I ensure that they're continuing to take care of themselves, again, for personal development and their growth, and so they remain healthy during this time.
And just to add on to that, Anthony, I think that my role as the mental health provider with your team, I kind of try to take on the role of how can you make yourself the best you can be. So that's one of the things that I talk with the team about, what kind of things interest you and what kind of things would make you grow as a human being, as a wife, as a mother, as a father, as a parent, whatever the case might be. So how can you do that? What are the things that you can incorporate into your life for your own personal development? Can you learn a new language? Can you create a new hobby? Can you do something else that's going to make you increase the quality of your life outside of work? Because we know that if you've got a good, strong quality of life outside of work, that's going to help you at work because you're just going to feel more grounded and well-rounded. So that's definitely something that we highly encourage staff to do on a regular basis. And with respect to encouraging cooperation, I think that that's been a big push for me over my time with Anthony's team of trying to get people to look at other people's perspectives, because I know oftentimes when we're working in an office, particularly in a small office with other people, your emotions can get kind of high or you can get frustrated. So it's how do we encourage cooperation? How do we look at that person through that person's perspective and see what they're experiencing, and how can we make sure that cooperation is happening, because we know if cooperation isn't happening, then the work is much more difficult and more likely to not be successful. So those are all things that we work with. Anthony works with them from a different perspective in a different way, but together he and I cooperate so we can have the team learn to cooperate as well.
Thank you, Carol. So part of that mission, and of course we all have our operational standards, and I've been fortunate to work with the Department of Justice and other commanders to help develop the standards over a number of years. I've been through two different developments since I've been in ICAC. So of course part of that, we have our standards, but within our units, establish an ICAC team values and goals. So what's important within our team? What's the values and goals within our team? And of course, you know, our mission is to catch those predators, to do the proactive and reactive investigations. But within our team, what are some of the things that we look at? What are some of the values and goals that they have in place? And how do they celebrate that? Set ground rules for the team. What kind of ground rules do we have in place? And again, how are they supporting each other with some of these ground rules, and how they're communicating? Make sure you have a clear idea of the mission. And again, you know, we all are required to understand operational standards for the ICAC mission and what should be done. Okay, but think about that, making sure you have a clear idea of the mission and what our goals are. And because we're running a marathon and not a sprint, how are we going to complete that mission? And then of course, making sure the team understands the mission. Now, one of the things that's important to do with each one of your team members is talk to them individually and have them tell you how they understand the mission of ICAC and what they're expected to do. And then in turn, do it as a team. And then they can talk a little bit about how they feel they're going to complete this mission as a team, again, supporting each other. Now, I find this valuable because especially now during this pandemic, being home as we are, when we do our team meetings virtually, I'll have my analyst talk about the number of tips that she received that month, what she has to do. A lot of times we don't really understand what the other person's role is. We think they're doing some of the things that we're doing, and sometimes we have down days. And in reality, everyone has a different focus that day. So it's important that the team talks about it, understands the mission, and then understands what they do so they can support each other better. And laying the foundation, encourage trust and cooperation among your ICAC team members. And that can be difficult. We always talk about, and being in law enforcement, we've always worked for that person. It's like, it's like versus care. And, you know, we're not always going to like everyone that we work with. I mean, it's human nature. I mean, someone may just come across to us that, you know, you're not clicking with them. But working with them and caring about them is important. So that comes in with encouraging that trust and cooperation among ICAC team members. And again, with that example I gave you with my support person helping the analyst, I have 2 forensic people in my. I have 6 labs throughout the state of New Mexico, and then within my space where my office is housed, I actually have a lab there too. And I have 2 forensic examiners, and they support each other. One of the examiners now lives on the east side of the mountain, and it takes some time for him to drive down, where the other examiner is fairly close to the lab, and he'll work with the other examiner to help out with things that he can do that'll quicker for him to do than the other person to come down and do. So that really helps, working together, building that cooperation. And then fostering that team member information sharing, and working, again, that comes across, and it's difficult in the situation we're in now, but you can really take advantage of that on doing those Zoom calls, those Google Meet calls, at least once a week, just doing some sharing time. And it doesn't have to be anything formal. It could just be that we all get together, everybody grabs a cup of coffee, and they kind of talk about what they're working on, and they share that information. And we deconflict a lot among our teams, and that's within our states and then nationally, but sometimes we just don't really know what the other team members are doing. So sharing that information is important. And again, there's a number of ways to do that. It's easy to do that in person. I mean, I have to pull everybody to a conference room or go in the office and talk to everybody at one time, but now with the current environment, and I'm sure many of you are still working remotely, come up with some other ways that they can share that information. And then definitely encourage a collaborative team problem solving. One of the things that when we look at cases and stuff, bringing everyone together to discuss the case and maybe look at it from different angles is really helpful. But also that comes in handy with when they're bouncing ideas off of each other, they can also work free. You're also seeing some of the issues that are coming up and some of the things that are causing maybe some stress in other team members, where you can help alleviate that by being there for them. So that's really good wellness time also, because it brings some of that stress off that person, because they're actually able to collaborate with other team members.
Well, and all of these things, Anthony, like you've been talking about, they're really great because if you're able to share information or encourage trust and cooperation or collaboration, that's just going to make the individuals feel supported and feel heard. And one of the things that we know when people are working ICAC cases is that there's a tendency to kind of feel isolated. Most of the time when you're working, you're viewing images or you're doing the work, you're not doing it together at the same time. So it can feel very isolating. So if you feel like you've got the cooperation among your team members, that you can count on them, or that you feel like you can, if you have a question, you can go to the other team members and get that the question answered, or they might have some kind of skill that you don't have, that information sharing, that cooperation, and then the collaborative problem solving. So if someone from one part of the team comes and says, hey, I'm struggling with this, what can you do to help me figure out this problem? I know that happens a lot on your team with respect to the affiliates, because Anthony's core team in Albuquerque does the work all day long. So, and not necessarily the affiliates do that. The affiliates are doing other types of cases at the same time. So they might be calling up to Albuquerque to say, hey, so-and-so, can you help me with this? I'm not sure how to resolve this. And building that rapport with each other makes the affiliates feel more connected. It makes the Anthony's immediate team feel like they're being able to be a support and taking a lead role, which then feels good to them. And it's a great way to get cases worked on, because there's that sharing opportunity. There's the knowledge that is shared that can increase the overall knowledge of the team. There's the just the benefits of being able to get these cases worked on faster and more efficiently and in a good way. So all of those things, to me, are really important when you're laying the foundation.
Thank you, Carol. So, and you made some really excellent points there, because thinking back is that many of us, and especially if you're a commander and you oversee an entire state, we're going to have pockets in the state that are little islands. You're going to have agencies that are all by themselves, and Carol made some very valid points there that it's important that we share information and work with each other. One of the things that I promote is, like, if I have a small jurisdiction, well, I should say an affiliate in this part of the state, but it's a very small jurisdiction. I ask for them to coordinate and share information with the connecting counties. For example, New Mexico is the 5th largest state in the country, but it's very rural. So we have some agencies where there may be only one ICAC investigator that's a generalist in a small department, and they have to handle everything, and sometimes they're out there on their own. Again, that's where that stress comes in, because they're taking everything. So they're willing to take a case, and they've been trained in how to deal with these cases, but having that time to actually reach out, and we all know it's difficult to ask for help sometimes. I mean, it's human nature. It's like we want to show that we can do the job, but I promote that. I say, ask for help. I reach out to my affiliates all the time and say, look, how you doing with this case? Do you need help? We're there for you. I have the resources in my office that I can send anywhere in the state, but we also have resources throughout the state that can support each other. So that's where that information sharing and working as a collaborative team is important. And it's easy to think about just on your smaller scale within your office, but think about it as a big picture. How are the other folks doing?
Well, and Anthony, I think that we've seen the progression at least since I've been working with you. I think that your team has coalesced more than it was initially, and I think that they're feeling more connected and willing to work together, and not only work together with each other, but with the affiliates. So that's why this is called laying the foundation. We know that initially people aren't going to automatically go necessarily right into, I trust you, I want to cooperate with you, we're going to collaborate. But over time, if the leader sets the foundation for that, it sets the tone for cooperation and trust, then that's going to come through to the members of the team, and it's going to show in their work and show in their relationships with amongst each other.
Exactly. Thank you, Carol.
So what is an attuned ICAC team? When we're talking about attunement, we talked about this with the specific relationship to the leader. So how we act towards others, how we react instead of, if someone says something to us that might be perceived as negative, how do we respond to that? How do we, when we see somebody that's having a rough day, how do we react to that? So it's noticing and paying attention to our reaction towards others, regardless of the situation, whether it's we're reacting to them in a positive way or we're reacting to them in a way that's supportive. What are we doing when we come across other individuals? And how do we form relationships? So Do we have a tendency to be lone wolves and not work with people? Do we have a tendency to connect with others in a positive way and start spending time with them both during work and out of work? And the ability to resonate with someone's feelings. So what does that mean? That means, can we see someone and notice that they're behaving in a way that's different than how they normally behave? Can we, when someone says I'm fine, but their body language is telling you something else, do we notice that, and can we address that? Are we able to notice when someone's feeling sad, or when they're feeling angry, or when they're feeling anxious, or do we just go by what their words are and ignore what we notice in their body language? And then also the ability to understand what someone says might not reflect the way they really are. So I'm sure we can all think of times in our own lives where we've said, yes, I'm fine, when we're really not. And we say that when we're in an environment where we feel like no one is going to be there to hold a space for us, or no one's going to be there to really listen to what we have to say. So if we have, like on the previous slide, we have cooperation and trust, then there's a greater likelihood that we can connect, we can have empathy, we can understand what people really mean even when they're not saying the words directly.
Well, and that's a good point. So that last bullet, the ability to understand what someone says might not reflect the way they really feel. And again, thinking about your team throughout the state, and let's say, for example, I imagine many of you are not actually the commander of the state, but you're a leader within your agency, and you have the ICAC team, you're the supervisor. But think about how we respond. I mean, again, being a cop for as long as I've been, I know for a fact, 20 years ago, if someone asked me, and I was really stressed from working, and I'm back 20 years ago, I've been working undercover in narcotics, and those types of investigations do affect you because you're seeing the worst of people sometimes, again, and what we do with ICAC as well, but just a different type of person. If someone would have asked me how am I feeling, I would have probably said I'm fine, but it's really affecting me inside. So we need to look for those indicators, and that's why getting to know your team and being attuned with your ICAC team is important. And again, as a commander, being attuned with your task force and getting to know your team. I'm not going to know my affiliates as well as I'm going to know my direct team in my office, but I am going to know enough about them where I can at least reach out and understand when they're having those difficult times and they may not want to ask, then I know to ask that. And I have many examples of that I've seen that over time, that just looking for those indicators, because it may not always reflect the way they're really feeling.
So understanding the two roles. So each person plays two roles in the group. They're going to play the functional role. That's based on their position and the technical skill. So if you have someone who's an investigator, their functional role on the team might be to do the investigation. If you've got someone who's collecting the cyber chips and looking at that, that's their functional role. Anthony's functional role in the team is to be the commander, to be the leader, to be the one who guides the team. But there's also the psychological role, and that's based on the kind of person they are. So for me, I come from my training is in a systems-based training, and so what that means is we are all part of a system, whether that's our system at home as a family, whether that's our system at work. And as a psychological role, it means what do we do based on who we are, the kind of person we are. So there, you might find that there are some people that are the helpers, and they're always willing to put in the extra time and effort to help everybody out, sometimes even if they're sacrificing their own time. So they might come in early to help a colleague, or they might stay late to help a colleague, or pick up the slack when they've got time. That is one role that somebody might play. You might have someone else who plays the role of the team cheerleader. So they're the ones that's going to come in, and when the things are going rough, they're going to be the ones that are going to try to encourage everybody to stick with it. They could be the ones that are going to support people and just say, hey, we've got this. There's going to be people that are the more logical, methodical people who just want to help everyone figure out how to do things in an efficient way. And so they're the steady rocks of the team. So each person is going to play their job role, which is the specific job title they have, and their role there. And then they're also going to be playing the role that they have, as no matter what that role or where they have that. So that's the psychological role, is the role that we carry, whether we're at work, whether at home, whether with our friends, with our family. That's our psychological role that we kind of carry with us. And then the functional role is actually the job that we do. So we need to recognize the psychological roles. That could be a results-oriented person. So that's a team member who is naturally organized, and they work and they take charge and tend to be socially self-confident, competitive, and energetic. So they come into the team, and as their psychological role is to say, okay, what are the results we can get? How can we reach to the end? How can we make sure that we're getting the job done? We've got the relationship-focused person, and that's the person who kind of focuses on the relationships, making sure that people are getting along because they see the benefits of people getting along in order to get the job done. So they might be the people that, the person that when there's difficulties among team members, everybody goes to this person to try to get some support or advice or just to vent, because their strength is building relationships, and their strength is keeping the peace among other individuals. There's the process and rule followers. Those are the people who pay attention to details, processes, rules, and they tend to be very reliable, organized, and conscientious. Now, it's important that we have these people because they're the ones that are going to make sure that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. And this is going to help us make sure that when we are working on a case, it's going to get from the beginning to the end and be successful when it gets to court. So although these people can kind of be frustrating and annoying for others, because they might say, wait, are we following the rule? Is that the law? How do we make sure that we're not missing anything? They might, others in the team might kind of feel like this individual is dragging them down, but in actuality, this is a very, very necessary part of the team. So they're going to be the ones that are going to say, let's do this by the book to make sure that we get the results that we want. Then next we have the innovative and disruptive thinkers. So this might be kind of what you would consider maybe like the devil's advocate. They naturally focus on innovation, anticipate problems, recognize when the team needs to change. They tend to be curious, imaginative, open to new experiences. And they're the ones that might try to shake things up. So if we've been doing something the same way in the office for a very long time and we don't understand, we don't even consider that there's a new way to do it, the innovator or disruptive thinkers could be the one that said, why are we doing this way? There's a much more efficient way to do it. Why are we stuck in the same routine just because we've done it all along? So they're the ones that are going to say, let's think outside the box and see what we can do. And then we have the pragmatic psychological role. And that's the team members who are practical. They're hard-headed challengers of ideas and theories. They tend to be prudent and prudent emotionally. So we've got, those are the people that are just, let's just be very practical about this. Let's come get the job done. Let's just not waste time. What's our task? Let's start from A to B and get it done. So all of these people together make a great team. Now, we can't create our team by requesting in the job description that we have each of these roles. But if we can pull on the strengths of all of our team members, we can find that some people might be more likely than others to take on these roles. And if we have all these roles taken, then it's going to be a strong team that's going to be very effective and efficient.
Excellent points, Carol. And it's just something to think about. And as I mentioned at the beginning as well, we're talking about ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, because that's Carol is attached to that task force, but she also helps on the human trafficking side. But what we're talking about can be applied to any number of types of cases you investigate or you assist those survivors. And so think about how these roles can apply to that as well. Again, on my human trafficking side, we're dealing more of a direct contact with victims, of course, those individuals that survive being trafficked, and trying to interview them and place them, and having each person understand their role and how and what they can do. we can turn on each other's, not necessarily turn on each other, but rely on each other's strengths, and then help each other that way, again, for each person's individual role. Now, how to build an effective team. And again, this doesn't have to just be ICAC. I mean, as I mentioned, with human trafficking and a number of other crime cases justice cases we investigate. Build a relationship on trust and loyalty. Again, working with each other, knowing they can trust each other, knowing that we have each other's back. As I mentioned earlier, knowing that we care about each other. We don't necessarily have to like every single person we work with, but we care about them. So having that relationship in place where they know that we care about each other, knowing when you're doing a warrant that somebody has your back. Listening to your employees' ideas, that's important to when your employees, it's some of the best ideas that I've been able to implement within our two teams came from my employees, just saying, hey, what do you think if we do it this way? Or what do you think about doing something different, or implementing this spreadsheet, or whatever it may be? Listening to your employees gives them self-worth, helps them do their job better. And you're providing them, if they feel a tool is going to work and it's effective and the rest of the team agrees, why not implement it? If we can. And then effective leaders have influence even when they aren't around. When I take time off, I know my team's still going to function the way they would function if I'm there, if I'm not there, because I know how they work together. I know how they support each other. And as Carol mentioned earlier in the last couple of slides, is having, and sometimes you have that leader within your team that the other team members know they can turn to and talk to when you're not there. But as an effective leader, I know my influences and the way I come across and how I support my folks will do fine even when I'm not around.
And so, Anthony, I just wanted to add a little comment about that. And I've seen that in Anthony's team. It's because he's able to set the foundation, like we talked about previously. If you set that foundation where your team members can trust you, and I know this for a fact that his team members trust him because they tell me that they trust him. And when there's an issue, they will go to him and they'll say, this is bothering me, whether it's work related, whether it's wellness related, whether it's family related. They go to Anthony because they know that they can trust him and that they are loyal to him. And that loyalty is what makes him have influence even when he's not around. So he listens to them, they feel heard, they feel understood because they can trust him, because they feel he is loyal to them, they will be loyal to him. And like it says, effective leaders have influence. So even when Anthony's not around, everybody knows what Anthony would do and what he would expect. And because he has their trust and their loyalty, his team will carry that out. So I can see that. I don't know if Anthony sees that because he's in it, but I can see it from my vantage point. I can see that this is exactly what Anthony's team does.
No, and you're right, Carol. I mean, I've experienced that more and more. That now, when I know when I'm gone, that I know they're going to continue doing with the job. And we find that we're in that position now, especially working remotely. I don't have physical eyes on my folks every day, but I trust that they're doing their job. And when we do have our meetings, it's apparent that they are. Again, paying attention to the employees' unspoken feelings, looking for that. Getting to know your employees, and sometimes you can pick that up. And I always share a story, and I'm going to make this brief. Well, we had a day where we ended up rescuing. We just served a search warrant, found out that children were actually being hurt in this home. We're able to, and it was a generational thing that was going on for a number of years with the same parent and grandparents. And so that really affected the team. And then that same night, we had a second case where it really affected the team because, again, we rescued some additional children. And I could see the wear on the team, and we all went home for the night. And then the next morning, one of the team leads came up to me and said, hey, boss, we were all got together today and we were talking about, we had a really rough day yesterday and we really need to talk, and we'd like to talk to Carol too. And at that time, and that's what I want to hear. I want to see that. And of course, I saw a little bit more emotion there from that individual, and he was bringing what the team was experiencing, and the team was standing, and then the team came up and they said, yeah, we really need to talk to her. And I was able to call Carol, and she responded immediately. Of course, she was there within an hour, and she brought water and tissue, and she went up into we have a private quiet room, and she was able to go up there with each individual team member and actually talk to them. So that's important, by picking those kind of things up, that they feel that they can talk to you. And they are definitely a more effective team because they're able to do and complete the mission the next day without missing a beat. Being a mediator or a mentor, I don't know why I prompted that word today, is important. Again, as a leader, I think people understand that I take wellness serious. I'm checking in all the time, and if I see they're having a rough day, I'll say, do you need help with anything? Do you need to take some extra leave? You need to take a break? You need to go for a walk? But at the same time, I try to do the same thing. You know, so being a good mentor and then mediating those type of things by, if it's something as simple as going in there and telling someone it's time for you to take a break, or if two people on the team are having issues, being there to support them, listening to both of them, not taking sides, and trying to make a decision and help them come to a good resolution. And then, of course, encourage team members to listen and brainstorm different things so they can definitely work together and have that great cooperative teamwork. So, and I am sorry, this computer's acting strange for me. It's going backwards.
So the importance of consensus, and what this means is of everybody coming to agreement. So the reason that consensus is important is because we want to make sure that everyone understands that we're all working for the same purpose, the same mission. And it doesn't mean that everybody agrees wholeheartedly with the decision, but we can all give and take. And if you've started from the foundation that we laid out, and you have trust among the team members, and you have the ability to communicate, and you have cooperation built in, and then you've got each of the personality or the psychological ideas of each of the individuals, then consensus is going to be easier to meet. So you can establish a method for arriving at consensus. So for your individual team, what does that look like? Does that mean it's 100% everybody agrees? Does it mean that it's majority rules? Is it that no matter what it is, the commander makes the final decision? What does consensus look like for your team? And then work towards consensus in decision making. So once you've decided what consensus is and how you're going to arrive at consensus, then it's work towards it. So do we all sit around and discuss the pros and the cons? Do we talk about the best, what do we feel is the best way to do this? Do we talk about the quickest way? How do we how do we arrive at consensus? And then what are the decisions that we have to make to get there? And then create structure and consensus building sessions. So this might be something as simple as what do we need to do to make a warrant happen? What do we need to do to decide holiday schedules? Whatever the situation is in the office, it doesn't mean that it just has to be related to a particular case. It can be anytime the consensus needs have a consensus building session. Is it something that we do in a very formal manner where we have a team meeting every week and we decide the big issues that need to be addressed? Is it something you kind of do on the fly through text or in person? How do we have a consensus building session, and what does that look like?
Yeah. All right, so what about communication? Mentor effective communication skills. So again, as a leader, mentoring those effective communication skills, talking to your employees, reaching out to them, making sure they're being healthy. And again, it doesn't have to just be all work related. I mean, think about some of the other things that are going on in their life, and definitely mentor that and work with them. Use clear communication when giving direction. But again, so one of the things that I do with my team is that no child pornography, so no viewing child pornography the last 2 hours of the day. I'd like for them to only write reports. And then also one of my clear communications is they must take breaks. And I recommend that they don't eat at their desk, that they actually get up and go out to eat somewhere, leave the building. We actually have a really nice break room. They can go in there. And because I don't want them working and eating at the same time, clear communication, how I want them to do that. In turn, with my communicating that, I try to do the same thing, you know, that they don't come in there and see me at my desk for 8 hours at a time, that I'm taking that time. Now, I found that just walking around, checking in on them, and making that part of my break throughout the day helps with me mentoring and communicating with them. And then highlight effective communication among ICAC team members. So some of the things that they're doing, some of their accomplishments, highlighting that. Again, working directly. So you have a lead that's really that's stepping in within, doing things that go above and beyond, highlighting that with other team members, and then showing how their successes are. And we've talked a little bit about showing the successes through different ways, like the wall of shame, you know, the people that have been arrested or something, you know, highlighting that through what these team members are doing.
And Anthony, just to go back to that one real quick, this highlight effective communication among team members, that makes me think of a situation that you were talking about recently, where you had a couple people who they didn't initially seem to get along real well, but then after they went together on a warrant, they really started spending time together, hanging out, communicating well. And so Anthony certainly highlighted that to them and said, wow, I really see this improvement in the communication of you two, and that's great for the team, because if you can highlight the times when you see positive communication, it will encourage that even more. So then there's a greater likelihood that that will improve and it will continue. So that's the whole objective, to making sure you're highlighting that, because when people get positive feedback for something, it's going to make them want to do it some more.
Yeah, very good point, Carol. You're right. And you're right, that definitely makes a big difference by giving that positive feedback. And then here are steps to building the effective team, being involved. Of course, one of the things that I do, because it's been a number of years since I've done investigations and touch with forensics and those kind of things, and that changes all the time, as we all know. So being involved. So one of the things that I do is I do go into the lab quite a bit, and I'll ask my forensic examiners about some of the new tools they're using and how they're working for them, and what's the best thing, what other tools would work for them and make their job a little bit easier. So, and then in turn, I do that with my other folks. One of the things that I noticed now going with the pandemic and moving everybody remotely is I had to buy several new laptops, printers, even paper, printing paper, and even ink cartridges. For some of my team wanted to use their printers at home. So again, being involved remotely sometimes is difficult. So what I did is I'll talk to each team member at the beginning and say, so what does your workspace look like? And that was my way of being involved, because I know what the workspace looks like at home, but what is it, or at the office, but what does it look like at home? And then what's going to make your life a little bit easier so you can get your job done at home and isn't intrusive with your family, and you'll still have that time to walk away and get and take the time that you need for yourself. So again, being involved that way, being in touch with their day-to-day ICAC activities is important. That's easy to do, again, and being housed in one area. But if you're working remotely like we are, just touching base with them, calling each individual person and just seeing how their day-to-day activities are. For example, this week, I scheduled we use Google Meets. I scheduled a Google Meets team meeting at 3 o'clock on Friday And most of the folks leave by 4, so it's going to be from 3 to 4, and we're going to end off our week like that. And it's not going to be a week of, it's not going to be a meeting talking about I wanted to end on a happy note, that way they can start their weekend with a positive feeling about leaving the office. And because we physically can't leave, so we're doing it virtual. So that's my way of keeping in touch with them. And then, of course, look for those clues that a problem might exist. And those clues sometimes are very apparent. If someone is having problems getting the work done, you may see some things physically, maybe even breaking down. Looking for those indicators and thinking about how can you step in and help that individual? How can you help them be more successful in what they're doing? How can you assist them with that? Looking for those. And again, with our analyst, the volume of tips have gone up considerably, and I was able to see those clues, and I was seeing that some of the things that were happening to her, that she felt like she was falling behind. So I was able to bring support staff in to assist her. Now, and they were able to do something simple as just pulling a case number for her and filling in the form. That would normally take her an extra 30 minutes per cyber tip. That took that away, and that released some of that stress. So little things like that and just being involved and really helps with that stress level. Being transparent as possible with your ICAC team. Okay, so I've always been transparent with my folks. They always know where we stand on everything. Especially, you know, if I have to cancel a warrant or I have to cancel something for a reason, I'm going to tell them why we're doing that, and be transparent, because you want your team to trust you. You want your team to know they can come to you with anything. And when you're transparent and they see that they can come to you and that you're going to be upfront with them, they know they're going to get the best answer from you. Delegate tasks and responsibilities when possible. I mean, and as a team leader and as a leader, sometimes it's difficult. We're like, you know, I'm the only one that can get this done, but it's okay to delegate that. I have always been the person that I've always wanted to do everything myself because I know it's going to get done. But you know, I'm pulling away from that. What I'll do now is I'll actually call my admin staff and or the person, one of my agents on call, and I'll say, can you take care of this? And just let me know what the results are by the end of the day. That's it. Or by the end of the week. But delegating those tasks and relieving them and giving people more responsibility to help with your wellness as well. But and again, it shows them that you're trusting them in their capabilities, and you know that they can get the things done. And then be honest as much as possible. It's being open and honest as much as possible. That's important. You know, again, when we started this, the pandemic back in March, we sent everyone home. We started developing things. We weren't getting a lot of communication. Just people had no idea which direction we're going to go. So my team was always asking, what are we doing now? So keeping everybody informed, being open, honest. If I haven't heard anything, I'm going to let my folks know. I've not heard anything from our chain of command. So we're going to continue doing business as usual until we get new marching orders. But again, being open, honest, and building that type of relationship, so when things are difficult for them, they know they can come and talk to you and ask for help. Teach your ICAC teams to be self-sufficient, and that's a big one because especially now working remotely. Of course, being in the office, we're always doing that, but as a leader, just teaching your teams how to be self-sufficient for so many different reasons, and it actually helps build them and feeling self-sufficient. They can get things done, but knowing that they can turn to you or someone on the team for assistance as well. Guide your team to work well with another more effectively. One thing that I did recently is we had an undercover operation, and I was concerned that two of the individuals that I just sent through undercover training were not really getting along as well as I'd like them to. I saw that interaction in the office, and so I assigned them both to this UC operation. And the neat thing about this is that it turned into a great relationship. one of them called me and said, hey, we're meeting for breakfast, and we're going to go over some of the things we're going to do on the chat off, and this is how we're going to do it. I would have never seen that. But by going in there and bringing them together, and they're working together now, it's built a really great relationship. So, and then understand as trust and confidence are built within the team, productivity, efficiency will increase. So building that trust and that confidence within the team, and then when they can rely on each other, and is important. And then doing lots of check-ins with them and seeing how you can continue to support them.
Well, and again, this is so evident in Anthony's team, because you can see that where it started out initially, he had there was people coming into the team and people leaving the team. And so you've got, your team might not be as strong, but then if you're a strong leader, then your team is going to want to stay. It's going to build that strength. And then all of these things kind of come into play. It's not that there's never going to be problems. It doesn't mean that everything's always going to be perfect, but it means if you have that strong foundation, people are going to be willing to work through the difficult times to keep the team going.
Yeah. So steps to building an effective team. Serve as a good example, as I mentioned earlier, and that's a big part of it, you know, being as in a good example. And a good example doesn't mean working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, though. You know, a good example means is taking that time. You know, you're working your shift as a leader, but you also have to show that being a good example means taking that wellness time, getting up and taking those breaks, eating away from your desk, doing those things, and talking to your team about that. That way it's building that trust. And then follow up with your team's progress. As I mentioned before, working remotely, one of the things that I do is I have them do a monthly, and I'm sure you all do that as well. Have them do a monthly, and they send that to me, and I tell them, this is your chance to brag about all the great things that you're doing this over the month of October. And I want you to include, and then a lot of the concerns I'm hearing now is that, oh, you know what, boss, we're not doing these cases because we couldn't go out and serve warrants. We've gone down. And I said, but you're taking lots of great training, right? Let's brag about that. So I want them to talk about that. So that's one of the things that I've seen in their monthlies is I've taken this tip of this training on the dark web, and they're excited about that. So when we have these team meetings, they go, hey, I learned this on the dark web, and these are some of the things we can do for UC work, and this is how we can do this type of case. And then redirect is necessary in a supportive manner. And you know, sometimes our folks will go in a direction that we don't necessarily think they should be going in, and redirecting them and being there to support them. But how are we going to redirect them, and showing that support is important. Cheryl, do you want to add something to that?
So I think, yes, I think that all of these things are so crucial. And from my standpoint, I can, when the team comes to me, they come to me and talk about their struggles amongst each other, and they talk about how they feel like they need support in more, not necessarily always mental health way, but if they need support on how do I get along with people, how do I communicate with people. So that redirecting is kind of what I will do with them, as far as, you know, if you're feeling like this person is really bothering you, what are the skills that you can use to try to get around that? Or how can you learn to communicate with them in a better way? Or how can you reach out to Anthony for support so that you can feel heard and you can work through that issue, because we know that if there's an issue in the team, that's going to impact the work. So absolutely, you want to make sure that you're serving as a good role model and a good example by doing the things that you want your team to do, and then that's going to trickle down, and you're going to see there's going to be increasing cooperation and everyone getting the job done.
Great, thank you. Definitely monitor and review your team, as I mentioned earlier, just checking in on them. And when I say checking in on them, it isn't meaning in a negative way, checking in to see if they're doing the job, just monitor and reviewing how they're doing. Again, we're working remotely. Sometimes that can be difficult, but it's something simple as, and I have a fairly young team, it's something simple as sending a text to them and saying, hey, how's your day going? And sometimes, you know, oh, well, I'm doing this, boss, I'm doing that. And it's like, I'm just checking in to see how they're doing. Adapt and adjust as needed. And again, it's we have to be very fluid in what we do because things change daily, and we have to be able to adjust to that. And looking at that when you're building your team, sometimes folks do better in different situations. So again, adjust as needed, and then discuss outcomes with the team members. And debriefings are great. I've always done that after every big case. But again, even these end of the week calls that like I'm going to do on Friday is discussing outcomes with team members and how their week went and anything they knew, anything that they learned that they could bring to the table that maybe others might want to do. One of the great things we see out of that is that my team, they can say, I took this really cool class through NW3C, and then other people are going to jump on that and take that as well.
So some of the things that you want to consider are how do we know if our team is effective and how do we know if we're accomplishing our goal? So you could look at what has the team achieved by so far. That's easy for Anthony to see because he can look at his stats and he can see what the team has achieved and what did they change, what did they learn, what's working. So you can, overall, you can see some of this information by stats, but then you can also see on how are they getting along? Are they working together? Is teamwork happening? Are there complaints? Do people come to work with a positive attitude? So, and when you have all that information, you can say what aspects of the team need improvement. So where are we still kind of not making things go so smoothly? What do we need to work on? Is it we need to maybe do some more teamwork, or do we need to work on some systems? Is it personality stuff? So how do we achieve a team that's cohesive and works well together?
Okay. Sorry, here we go.
And so there's absolutely steps to building an effective team. You can use some team building exercises. I think we've got a handout today that might have some of those on there, but one of the ones that I like to use is an exercise. It's called the spaghetti exercise, and it's making people work together to build a tower. And so it's just a way of getting people to engage in a way unrelated to work, but it's something that shows who kind of is the leader and how can we cooperate and how can we take everybody's input in. And then encouraging activities that improve cooperation. So what do you need to do as far as outside of work to do to build teams? So can you do something like go have an activity outside of work where you can encourage cooperation? Maybe that's doing a ropes course or doing something where everybody has to work together, just so that they can learn to trust each other and learn to work together. And then encourage collaboration. So maybe that looks like there's a project that's coming up, or there's a warrant that needs to be done, or there's a report that needs to be done. And so Anthony can encourage the team to say, okay, this person take on this role and this person take on this role. And everybody comes together and collaborates to create a whole report that's well done, or to create a case that's well done. Obviously, when we're working cases, it takes a lot of collaboration so that everybody's pieces are in the report and ready to go.
So think of some activities your teams can do. Fundraiser projects is a big one within your team. And there are a lot of different fundraiser projects that come along throughout the year. Social events, how they can work together. One of the things that we try to do during the holidays, right before Christmas, is we do a gift exchange, and we all go to a place called Main Event. It's like a Dave & Buster's. So that's a way for the team to kind of build up and to build that, it's kind of a fun time for them. Outdoor adventures or activities, maybe having some type of barbecue, and even involving the family, including your families and bringing everyone together. And then the community outreach. One of the things that I do on the human trafficking side is the A21 walk, where everyone walks. It's on a Saturday morning. They walk to recognize folks that are being trafficked, and most of the human trafficking team participates on that, in addition to the ICAC side. You definitely want to establish connections with your ICAC team members. Just having that connection with them, so they understand that you're there to support them, be there for them. Make your employees feel that you support them in everything that they do. And then this allows your employees to, they feel that they can be heard, and that's important. And we've talked a lot about that, is that the biggest part of this is, besides having them do their job, and providing the equipment and training that they need, they should know that they can come to you with anything that's really affecting them, because it does make them definitely more productive that they know they have your support. Recognize the individual strengths of your ICAC team. Again, everyone has a strength. You may have a team lead that everyone goes to, and that's going to be the spokesperson, as I mentioned earlier. I have an individual like that, my second. Appreciate the team's diversity. Everyone has something different to bring to the table, and everyone has a different background. I have a veteran that does my forensics. He has he has things that he was exposed to, and some of the things that he's done, and he likes to share that with the team, where I have folks that are straight out of college. So everyone has something different to bring to the table, and then create an accepting environment, and that's important. And again, the social events, celebrating each other's successes, little things like birthdays, a new baby, those kind of things, creating that accepting environment where everybody's involved and they're all part of that.
And you want to encourage.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you want to encourage team self-compassion. So you want to make sure that everybody understands we have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to treat ourselves as we would our best friend. So mistakes do happen. We've all made mistakes in the past. And instead of perseverating on the mistake that we made, how can we learn from that? So how can we teach the mistakes can be learning opportunities? Because they can. If we've made a mistake, what are the things that happened that led us to making that mistake? So that next time we can avoid that and then not have to worry about the consequences of that. And then discuss the benefits of self-compassion. So we know that if you are compassionate with yourself, A, you're going to be able to be more compassionate with others, and then B, it's going to be a good way for you to role model. So what can you do to help people understand that we need to take care of ourselves first, and then everybody else down the line? Because if we don't take care of ourselves, there's absolutely no guarantees that someone else will. And then talk about examples of self-compassion. So maybe that looks like self-compassion to me might look like making sure that if I do make a mistake, I treat myself with understanding. Or if I feel like I'm tired at the end of the week and I just can't stay that extra 2 hours overtime, being compassionate and saying, I'm only human. It's all that kind of self-talk that we do that's going to be helping us to feel better about ourselves. So we also want to encourage self-care. That's recognizing that everyone needs self-care. And what we mean by that is the actions that we do. So we think of self-compassion as how we think about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, and self-care is the actions that we take. And this means self-care could be something like taking a walk, going for a run, spending some time reading, whatever your own self-care looks like. It's making sure that you're taking time for that. And encourage team members to take time for themselves. So I know Anthony has people on the team take some time for exercise, and he doesn't dictate what kind of exercise. That could be walking your dog, it could be working out, but it's making sure you're taking care of yourself. And then role model self-care for a team member. So I know Anthony does that as well. He's going to be the first one that's going to get out there and talk about the things that he did that were self-care, so that he sets the tone and lets everyone in the office know that it's okay and it's encouraged to take care of yourself.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. That was so much wonderful information. You gave so many different tips and tricks. And for the audience, please feel free to download that PowerPoint slide that showed up in the beginning of our presentation, or email us if you need us to create a PowerPoint slide in a PDF format for you, because you can keep that with you and go back to it. Now, I do have a couple of questions that we received during registration, and I will read out some of them. Feel free to put any other questions that came up during the presentation in the chat or in the Q&A or privately to any of us, and we can address some of those. I thought we could start with, and Anthony, I'm going to hand this one over to you. One of the audience members asked, if you have a hostile team environment, how do you address that, and how do you make it healthy again?
I'm sorry. It's like somebody's car's backing up.
And a FedEx had to show up right when I'm asking my question. So the joys of working from home, I apologize. It's my turn to say, Carol. So
is that you, Gabby?
Yes, that's my personal FedEx truck right there delivering for me. So if you are sensing that your team is getting in a hostile working environment, how do you kind of fix that, or what do you do to help?
Well, and that has happened to me as well. And as I mentioned in the presentation today, that sometimes we don't like everyone we work with, and that's going to happen on a team. So what I did is I actually talked to each person individually, and to kind of just hear what their issues are with each other, and then after I did that, then I brought them together as a team, and then we talked more about how we could work together closer as a team. Now, that was a difficult time. I mean, in fact, the two people that I mentioned that brought together, there was definitely some friction there, but now they're eating breakfast together. So working with them was important. I personally have never had to involve HR because it got to the point where we couldn't resolve it. I've been able to talk to them individually, and it's been with law enforcement specifically. That's who I work with, but talking to them individually, and then talking to them as a group, and then trying to resolve the issue and see where we can come to a happy medium. And again, working as a mentor, but also as a mediator. Can't say that word there for some reason. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But
mediator.
Being there to support, mediator. Thank you. Have you ever had that morning or that day where it's just the word you do not want to say for some reason, and that's my word for today. So yeah, so definitely working with them. I would prefer not to just let it go away and say it's going to work itself out. It's best as a leader to get involved if you can, and then try to put an end to it that way.
Thank you, Anthony. That was great. We do have another one as well that asks if there's any way to anticipate burnout and compassion fatigue on a personal level for yourself and as well as for your team, and is there a way to do something preventative? And I know we talk a lot about this throughout our presentations, but basically, is there a way to do something prior to getting to a point where there's no return? Maybe Carol can answer that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So that you're exactly right, Gabby. That is something that we talk about often because we want people to know the signs and symptoms. So we actually, on our website, have a list of those signs and symptoms. But in particular, for quick down and dirty, make sure that you pay attention to if it's for yourself, make sure you pay attention to how you're feeling. And if you notice that you're feeling different, maybe more sad, more frustrated, more angry, more depressed, whatever the case may be. So it's going to be anything that's out of the norm for yourself or for your team members or for your employees for that matter. So it's taking the behavior that you know from them as a standard behavior and then paying attention to, is there any difference? And has it changed over time? And has it changed particularly maybe after a particular incident? Is there something that's that you can see that's led to this change in behaviors and actions? And then if that's the case, if it's yourself, you want to go out and try to do what you can to make yourself feel better, starting with some self-compassion, self-care. If it's one of your teammates or one of your employees, it's going to them and reaching out and saying, hey, I noticed that you're more sad, more angry, more whatever the case might be, and is there something that I can do to support you? So that's the beginning stages so that you can nip it in the bud before it becomes a big problem. But certainly we have a lot of information on the SHIFT website. If you'd like to go there, I highly encourage you to go there and get the information that we have listed there.
Perfect. And Anthony, if I can ask you to move us to the next slide just so that they see the SHIFT Wellness website on their screen, as well as our contact information. And just as Carol said, there's plenty of useful information on there. We also have handouts that we upload in PDF, and you can download them from there, or you can email any of us, and we will make sure that we provide those to you. And I have one more for Anthony, hold please. And this one asks how to build a diverse team and encourage diversity of thought, not just in the demographics. I thought it would be appropriate for the times that we're in currently.
How to build a diverse team?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So one of the things that I have done, and my team is very diverse. I have selected people. The people that I've hired have come from my affiliates. So and I have range in ages, and it happened that way. I have male and female, of course. So my undercovers, they all brought something different to the table. So just to give you an example, so two of the most recent hires that I brought in were affiliates, and they were detectives in another unit, and they'd worked these ICAC cases, and I brought them in, and they both look like they're about 14 or 15 years old, even though they're like closer to 30. But that brought in diversity, and it brought in that personality, and then that generation's personality with technology and how they like to and how they do things. However, then I brought in I got a disabled veteran grant. It's called a Hero Grant, and I was able to find a disabled veteran within our community that was working with the DEA and did some IT stuff. And I brought him over and trained him to be a forensic examiner. And he brings in that military background, but he's fit in great with everyone, the non-military folks as well. And then I brought in I have a person that actually is my canine handler. We have electronic detection canine, and he's was military at all. And he's kind of a grumpy guy. He's my age, and almost said an old guy like me. And but he's diverse as well. He's very quiet, but he'll do anything for you, and he'll grunt at you. But that's him. But I've been able to pick different people from different areas through my task force, and so I have never really selected my team with one mold in place. And this is the mold they're going to look like. This is how they're going to be, and this is what I'm looking for. It's kind of funny that everybody just brings something different to the table, and it's created a very diverse team. And again, it's brought some of those likes and dislikes, but they all care about each other, and they've all become a really good cohesive team, even though they all come from different areas too. So I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely, yes, that was perfect. Thank you so much, Anthony. Well, thank you guys so much, and thank you to our audience for being here with us today. Again, feel free to reach out if we didn't answer anything you might have, or you want to ask us privately, please reach out to us. And I will hand it back over to Will.
Great. Thank you very much, Gabby, and thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Carol, again for a absolutely wonderful presentation. It was a great finale to a 4-part series, I must say. So thank you all very much for your expertise and just a wonderful presentation. For our audience members, just a couple of last-minute announcements for everyone, just to wrap up today's webinar. Please note that you can reach out to OJJDP's NTTAC through the contact information through this slide, and also if you would like to sign up for our NTTAC listserv, you may do so by texting 22828, texting NTTAC to 22828, and we can get you signed up to that listserv. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook at OJJDP TTA. And if you'd like to reach out or get in contact with the OJJDP Help Desk, you may do so by contacting the number that's on, actually it's one slide back, Anthony, sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. I just want to put this 1-800 number up here for folks, because I know we had several questions that came in about people that may not have had a chance or had issues with accessing the handouts that we had here. So if you need any assistance with any of the handouts that we have accessible for folks, you can reach out to this 1-800 number or even email us and we can get that to you as well. You can also be sure to sign up for the OJJDP JuveJust as well and sign up to see upcoming events. Do you have a training or technical assistance need? Well, if so, you may submit a request on our OJJDP TTA 360 platform. You could just go to the website here and submit your TTA request on this platform. And as a reminder to everyone, this webinar is recorded and will indeed be available on our NTTAC YouTube page. If you'd like to, again, receive any supporting materials, you may do so by contacting the OJJDP TTA Help Desk. We have a couple of events coming up on this month that we would love for folks to sign up for. We have a webinar coming up this Friday on legalization of marijuana and its adverse impact on youth. You can click to register or even learn more about that event. We also have a webinar coming up with our colleagues with Zero Abuse. And that's coming up on November 10th, and you can click to register or even learn more for that event. And I believe finally we have a couple of other events with our colleagues with Zero Abuse that you can register for and sign up for. Please note that the event on November the 19th is only for MDT, law enforcement, and prosecutors. That's the event on the 19th, so please be mindful of that. And I think that is the last slide there. So, but before you all leave, I do have one final poll question to ask our audience that I'm going to queue up for everyone. It's the last poll question that we have for this webinar. So if everyone who's remaining, if you all could, just take a few minutes to answer this poll question on how you plan to apply your knowledge. It should be opening up for you in just a matter of seconds here. Okay, let's see. Or maybe not. 1 second. Let me make sure it's coming up here. Okay. And let me open it again. Let me change my view here to make sure that I didn't miss it. Okay. 1 second, everyone. Apologies for that again. Let me just make sure that that I didn't miss everything here. No. All right. Yeah, there it is. It looks like it's freezing on me. My apologies, everyone. It looks like the poll question has crashed my WebEx, so apologies about that. Well, nonetheless, thank you all again for a wonderful webinar and appreciate your time today. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you on the next webinar. Take care. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.